So Superman is finally here, and all I gotta say is, we are so back. This movie is actually a lot more divisive with the public than I was expecting. Besides the Zack Snyder meat riders, I think that for the average person that doesn't have superhero media constantly going through their consciousness, this movie was probably a little hard to be immersed into, and this does lead into an issue that I not necessarily have with the movie itself, but the fact that I think it just came out at the wrong time. I think that if they had started out the DCU with an origin to Superman, Lois, and all these other characters, that the emotional moments they tried to put in the movie would have hit a little bit harder. I feel like origin movies tend to just connect audiences with the characters more, and I feel like this film solidified that for me. I went to the theater with people that I know that aren't big into superheroes. They just watch the big movies that people talk about that are more like events. And coming out of Superman, all of them said that they just didn't care about any of the character moments, like the romance between Clark and Lois, and not much of the side characters really, or the section with Superman's parents, etc. And me being someone who knows these characters already and is just excited to see them represented in a movie, obviously is going to be over the moon about this film because of how much it feels like a comic book. But for the average viewer, I think this movie does struggle. It also doesn't help that at the end of the movie, this guy sits up from his seat in the theater, comes down to where my little brother, who's 13, is sitting, and talks over top of him saying, "You couldn't turn off your phone for 2 hours? What the fuck, dude?" And then just storms off out of the theater by himself. My brother said he checked his phone twice and his brightness was all the way down. And it's just like, how do people feel so entitled to the point where they'll yell at kids for that type of nonsense? At the end of the day, as much as I and many others love comic book movies, it's still just a movie, guy. Go get a job or something. But besides all of that, I do have a couple more issues with the film. Overall for me though, I thought it was just a world of a time. I want to talk about some of the positives in this movie because there are just so many. But I want to talk about the main things that stuck out to me because everyone knows this movie is good. It's just about how much the problems in this movie bother you. Number one is the cast. David Corenswet is Superman. No buts or ifs around it. This guy embodies the comic version of what Superman is supposed to be. And part of that also has to do with the writing, but that's just because James Gunn and his team know how to write superheroes. But at the same time, you can just tell that David knows the body language and the attitude of this character. It's the way he talks to everyone in this movie and how he is always looking to save as many people as possible. This is the pinnacle of Superman, and I can't wait to see this version interact with the rest of the Justice League. We don't always need grounded iterations of these characters. Another standout performance that I think was equally as good, if not better than Superman, was Lex Luthor. Nicholas Hoult so clearly gets Lex. He is exactly the kind of hateful, envious, power-obsessed type of antagonist that we need in these movies. And having this D1 hatred against just the best dude in the world is so much fun to watch and creates a lot of humor. And his performance just has that energy. You can so clearly tell that he enjoys playing Lex, and again, just the way he talks with that attitude and body language is exactly how I envision Lex in the comics. I will say that towards the end of the movie, he kind of feels a little too whiny for me. I would have just liked to see him be a little bit more devilishly evil rather than get treated like a baby. But I do think showing that is good so we can get more of just how much of a hater he is, and we wouldn't have gotten this image either. So, along with the rest of the cast, I think Rachel Brosnahan did a pretty stand-up job as Lois. I think the main issue is that they didn't exactly give her too much to work with, which is why I would have liked more of an origin story to explore more of her and Clark's relationship, and maybe her finding out that he's Superman, to just seeing her reaction to all of that and wanting to help him do good, I think would have been nice to see from her. But I think she was still a great part of the film. The movie is just trying to juggle a lot, and it's hard to get attached to so many characters when we only get bits and pieces of each, with the exception of
goddamn Mr. Terrific.
And speaking of, all of the side characters included in the Justice Gang, I thought were welcome additions in this movie. Mr. Terrific is no doubt the favorite based on the amount of screen time and the love the movie gave him. He's hilarious, he's important to the plot, and he just does cool superhero stuff. And sometimes that's all we need. Guy Gardner was also hilarious in this movie, and I can see exactly why James Gunn put him in here. I love Nathan Fillion's work and charisma, so it just makes me even more excited for the Lanterns project coming up. Isabella Merced as Hawk Girl definitely got the least amount of screen time compared to the rest, but I thought the moments they gave her were well done, and I'm not going to say that I'm not excited to see her in the future. But something that I do want to get into is how I've been seeing a lot of people call this movie a mess, and I don't necessarily agree with that statement. And to talk about this, I just want want to give out a spoiler warning because I want to get into the actual plot of this movie. So here's your warning. If you haven't seen Superman yet, what are you even doing here? Go watch it. I think this movie has a very clear story from start to finish, being Lex trying to take down Superman's public image / trying to kill him, and the Daily Planet trying to take down Lex. You spend the whole movie with the back and forth between Superman and Lex and the Daily Planet. I think it's just that since it's our first time meeting these characters, we don't really get any proper introductions. So when we see these people interacting with Superman and each other, we're just expected to care. There hasn't been enough buildup yet for us to care enough. I think that this movie has a lot of humor in it though to soften that up for us. And honestly, I think that this was easily the funniest movie this year I've seen so far. Krypto is such good comic relief that I think in the future, we'll get a portion of people to come to these movies just for him. And I think that every other character as well has funny moments in some capacity. Jimmy Olsen is another good example of just good character writing. He had funny moments, but at the same time, he was important to the plot. But getting back into why I think this movie should have been an origin story, I think the most clear example of this is the amount of time we spend with Clark's parents. At a certain point in this movie, we go to Clark's childhood home to see his parents, and we get to have a very emotional conversation between Pa and Clark Kent. And I think it was obviously very well done, but even for me, I didn't find myself feeling very attached to Pa Kent or really caring for their conversation because I have no emotional attachment to his parents. If I was an average viewer and this is my first Superman movie ever, I've never seen these people before, so why am I supposed to care when I see a scene like this? It was clearly motivating for Superman, and that's nice, but I just think for an average viewer, it could have hit a lot harder in a sequel movie. And I know they're setting up Pa Kent to probably die in the next 1 to 2 Superman movies, but I think having an origin movie with his parents still would have made the emotional moments hit a lot harder. And the same thing I think goes for the interview / argument that Clark and Lois have in the beginning part of the film. This is the first time we see Clark and Lois interacting alone in the movie, and I just feel like we kind of get thrusted into their relationship rather than with an origin story. I feel like we would get more time to flesh out these characters to care about them and their relationship more. I think that all of these issues with the movie just give the film a rough pacing and just showed me that an origin story to Superman would have been easier to digest. It's still a James Gunn movie with sauce, good music, and action, and represents these characters the way that everybody wanted them to be represented. Even people who don't like this movie can admit it's some of the most comic accurate media we've ever seen, and that it's better than Man of Steel. 8.5 out of 10. At the end of the day, we got what we wanted with this movie. That being Superman back in the public consciousness, being represented well in media, and the start to the DC universe. But I want to know your guys' thoughts on this film. Did it live up to the expectations? What would you guys change? Thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right, and I hope you enjoyed the video.